Careers are not a 100-meter dash, it's a marathon. You need to prepare for it. Today, HR is seen as a strategic partner to business. Their business understanding is extremely important. If they do not understand business, then they can't play this role. I think COVID has been a game changer in many, many ways. Today, HR is no longer seen as a support function. I think that nomenclature is gone.
These days, a lot of hustle is going on with AI. How are you tackling this human intelligence versus artificial intelligence, the combination?
Why is it that the men were getting picked for these projects? So the answer was very interesting. They said that
When the entire industry is buzzing about diversity and inclusion, I think it has to be curated based on the employee, probably.
I think one of the most important trainings that needs to be done is unconscious bias. My favorite question, which I always ask employees, is
If you have to tell the top 3 tools that a HR individual has to use, what could they be?
the first one I would say is analytics. Second is something that I have used a lot in my previous organizations is an
Recently also we have seen some cases like E&Y employee has committed suicide because of this stress and workload at office. That's what they have claimed for. Employees, when they are working on their desk, they always have probably only 2 things in mind. One, how am I growing in the organization? What is my hike?
so I was very curious because at that point I had
On the closing note, if you have to tell 3 important skills that a current HR person should have, and 3 important skills that any employee should have. Hello, welcome to MetaFolks Career Chat Show. This is Sri Lakshmi Iyengar, your career coach. Today we have an amazing guest, Rekha Narendra. She is working at RealPage as the HR director who holds 28 years of experience, worked with Ford Motors, Genpact and other organizations. She's a marathon runner and who also got into Everest. Yes, this is amazing. We spoke a lot of good things on the new age HR practices, AI and HI, human intelligence and artificial intelligence, and what's the return on investment on it. And then we spoke about mental well being, stress, how organizations should look at employees' well being from the HR perspective. So, a lot of things have unfolded, and the conversation was excellent. I hope you will also enjoy a lot. Hi, Rekha. Welcome to MetaFolks Career Chat Show.
Hi Sri Lakshmi, thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. I wanted to talk to you on a podcast since long time. We have been finding a schedule and all that. Uh, there are a lot of questions I have in my mind. Probably those are my questions, or on behalf of the employees of all the organizations, I'll put them to you, and then I would like to definitely get a lot of insights. Okay.
Absolutely. Very happy to do so.
Okay. Before talking about anything, these days a lot of hustle is going on with AI. Okay, as we are human resource managers, we deal with human resources. How are you tackling this human intelligence versus artificial intelligence, the combination? Because having only one will definitely not give you the return on investment for the organizations. So it has to be the combination. So, how are you actually tackling it in your organization? And please.
Absolutely. I think, you've started on the right note. AI is the buzzword, and, any panel discussion or any, conference that we go to today, that is a hot topic, right? And I'm reminded of this quote. Which I saw on LinkedIn, which says, I don't want AI to do my creative work and I do all my household work. I would rather have AI do all my routine and mundane work, which frees up my time to be able to do creative work, right? So for me, that is such a concise, description of how we should be leveraging AI in the world today. So AI has a lot of benefits, right? A lot of us spend a lot of time in analytics work or routine work or repetitive work. That's the kind of work where we should be leveraging AI. and we should be using AI, and that's what we are doing in our organization. And I know many organizations are doing it, because sometimes you have constraints in terms of availability of manpower, or it could be in terms of repetitive work, or it could be in terms of very heavy analytical work, analytical insights which are required. So those kind of areas are where AI should be leveraged. It's amazing, because even recently I went for an AI conference, and how AI is being leveraged in the medical field, being leveraged by doctors, being leveraged by surgeons. There's so many examples, and that's the amazing part. And when you use AI in the right way, then automatically it gives us human beings the bandwidth and the time for us to be spending on more creative and thought provoking and innovative and transformative work. And that's where we should be upskilling ourselves. So yes, while there is this fear and there is a threat, I don't think there is any reason. As long as we as human beings continue to upskill ourselves and continue to focus on more higher skilled, and thought enabling work, I don't think there's any need to fear AI. We should be leveraging AI rather. That's what I would say.
The quote that you said is very beautifully said, and then it means a lot. But when it comes to the actual world, people have been using, be it regular operational work, or it could be a strategic decision or a creative thinking or anything. People have been using AI for that. Okay. um, Recently there is a report which also says 14% of the jobs are already lost. This is a global report, be it US, UK, or in all those cases. So to avoid this major job loss, being a HR in the organization, what kind of steps is the organization taking to avoid such job losses or to transform the jobs?
Absolutely. See, first of all, I feel job losses are temporary, right? We have seen a lot of evolution in the last 15, 20 years, right? The kind of changes that we've seen, we have not seen in earlier decades. In fact, when Millennium happened, right, I'm sure many of you would remember Y2K. There was a
Yeah.
huge chaos, and there was people were saying, oh, the planes will fall off the sky on the day that we turn into 2000, the year 2000. So there was a lot of chaos, there was a lot of ambiguity, and many people felt jobs will go away. Yes, jobs did go away, but there are new jobs which get created, right? I mean, just take the classic case of typewriter. Who uses typewriter today?
Yeah.
Where is the role of typist? Those are all redundant, right? That's no longer there. But does that mean that those jobs are lost? No, those jobs have transformed into other jobs, right?
Yes, correct.
So that's how we should be looking at it. The way I see it, it's a blip. And that's why I keep going back to the importance of upskilling and reskilling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even if you are a fresher,
Mm-hmm.
just out of college, already your skill set and your tech stack might not be relevant to what the industry is looking for. So it's really important to keep yourself tuned to what the industry, how, in what direction is the industry moving, what are the latest innovations, and to what extent are you skilled to be able to match up to it. Even in HR, I keep telling this to my team all the time, right? Our function itself has evolved so much, right? In the last 20 years or so, it's transformed dramatically. And if we don't upskill ourselves, we don't stay relevant, and we don't keep learning, then that's how jobs become redundant. That's my view. I mean, I myself went back to college last year. I went back to ISB and I did a 7-month course, because I felt that as a HR leader, I need to stay relevant to the business that I am managing, and it's important for me to learn what the latest technologies are, the latest concepts are, and that will help me to deliver better in my role and to the organization that I work for. So whether it is my organization or I know other organizations also are investing a lot of time and effort in upskilling their
Yes.
employees, in terms of educating them on careers, in terms of making them understand the importance of constantly staying updated and reskilling themselves. But also I would throw the onus on the individual, right? At the end of the day, it is your career.
You have
What
to
are
push
you?
it.
Yeah, you have to. You need to have that hunger. You need to have that passion. You need to keep asking yourself that question day in and day out. What am I doing to stay relevant? How am I staying relevant? Are my skills only meeting today's requirement, or are they sufficient to meet tomorrow's requirement? That's a question that every one of you who's serious about your career needs to ask yourself.
Okay. Um, you were mentioning that even the HR role has been evolved. Okay. What kind of, can you, if you can portray top five reasons, five types of evolutions that happened, what will you say in the function of HR?
Absolutely. So, once upon a time, it wasn't even called HR, right? It was called as personnel administration, right?
Yes.
The focus was more in terms of, payroll and hiring and, some basic compliance and all of that stuff, right? So that's how the role of HR was. Then slowly it evolved. In the factories, it was more important because it was about managing unions and labor relations. So HR played
Yeah.
a very critical role there. Now, as we started moving into BPO and the IT, and as those industries started evolving, HR started playing a very critical role, because in organizations today, your people are your biggest assets, right?
Yeah.
And HR plays a very crucial role in terms of advising business on managing people. And today, HR is no longer seen as a support function. I think that nomenclature is gone.
Yeah.
HR is a very, very critical function to business. In fact, many HR leaders also become heads of organizations because they are very uniquely poised with the right skill set to be able to manage large organizations. So today HR plays a very vital role in terms of organization design, organization transformation. Gone are the days where you would draw an org chart and it would
Yeah.
remain the same for the next 10 15 years.
Yes.
Today org designs change very rapidly because business strategies change.
Yes.
I remember when I first started working, we used to have a 5-year business plan. Today, yes, I mean, do you do have an outlook, but your strategy is extremely important
I
for the
know.
next one
And the
year, and then changes are
changes are
so
like
rapid, right?
yearly, and then you measure them quarterly, and then
Exactly.
changes happen.
Correct. So when the org is rapidly changing, then the org design, the structure also needs to rapidly change. And HR or the people function plays a very vital role in working closely with organization in terms of with the business, in terms of the org design, the org transformation, and the change management, right? Then of course in terms of people experience, employee experience, employee needs are changing. I would always look at pre-COVID and post-COVID. I think COVID has been a game changer in many ways. Today many organizations are dealing with hybrid work model, right? Hybrid work model calls for a completely different set of skill sets, a complete revamp of the entire employee life cycle. Again, HR plays a very vital role there. Analytics
Yeah.
is a key function that's evolved in the past few years, because we sit on tons of data pertaining to employees. How are we leveraging the data? How are we using the data for creating insights which can then be used across hiring, or across performance management, or across building
Or it
leadership
could be betterment of the
pipeline?
employees. Yeah. How
Exactly.
you're
So
using.
these are all the areas, Sri Lakshmi, where HR plays a very, very important role, which is why today HR is seen as a strategic partner to business. Not only has a seat at the table, but has a voice at the table. HR leaders need to leverage this opportunity and need to up their game, and for which their business understanding is extremely important. If they do not understand business, then they can't play this role.
Beautifully said. Proud to be HR kind of
Yes.
thing. A lot of people would say. So when we were talking about the upskilling of the HR function, as sitting at the HR desk, now we think about upskilling of the entire organization, because as you see, every 6 months or every quarter new technology comes in, be it in the technology development also. When you say AI, we are working on LLMs now, SLMs have come, they're talking about edge computing, a lot of things are changing. So how do you design that learning and development for your employees so that they are not demotivated and then they want to explore the opportunities?
Absolutely. So, we give a lot of importance to self learning as well as on the job learning. And also, we do have curated learning programs. So, it's a combination of all of these. It's a 70-20-10 kind of a model that we follow. And I know most companies follow this kind of a model, right? So, it's a combination of business needs, business unit needs, as well as individual needs. So that's how this the learning path is curated. So we have a lot of platforms which are available to employees. So just to give you some examples, right, we have the Percipio platform. So employees have access to thousands of courses, which is whether soft skill or behavioral or leadership. We have a plethora of AI courses also on that platform. In fact, the interesting thing is, they have also launched something called AI Coach. So if you want to have a difficult conversation, so sometimes, today we don't have the bandwidth, right, to offer individual coaching to employees.
Yeah.
So employees can leverage the AI coach in such a scenario. They can actually have a conversation with the AI coach and instantly get feedback on how the conversation went, what that person could have done better to handle that conversation, right? Then we have platforms like Pluralsight, Udemy. So these are all having courses which are very relevant. So we create that environment and atmosphere for our employees to first of all emphasize the need to upskill themselves, and then these are all the options which are available. So in our organization we also have a university. It's a virtual university, and under that we have different schools. So we have, say, school of technology or school of product or school of management or school of compliance. So like that we have different schools, and some of the courses are mandatory for the employees and some of the courses are available, and we constantly make them aware about it. We
Okay.
also have tie-ups with universities. So for the India Center, we have a tie-up with Mahindra University. So for all our leadership talent and for our people managers, we curate workshops
Okay.
based on what the business need is, what the business strategy is for that particular year, and what the expectation is from the organization, from the center, from the leadership team. We then work with Mahindra University. We have several rounds of conversations and then we curate content, and these are all immersive learning programs. There's a lot of reflection, there's a lot of brainstorming. There are a lot of case studies and
They
deliberations
have to.
which go on.
Correct.
So depending on the group, Sri Lakshmi, different programs are curated. Similarly, we have something called My Pathway, where we have a tie-up with DDI, and through My Pathway an employee can go and do a self-assessment,
Okay.
and it then tells them from a soft skill perspective, what are the areas where they do well and what is it that they can do better.
Okay.
Now a similar thing they can also do through Percipio, which is a technical
Technical
yeah,
assist.
so that helps them in terms of, okay, depending on what role they are in. So if they are in a developer role, it actually helps them to create a path based on that, and helps them understand which competencies are low and which can be better, and what are the suggested courses for them to go through. So like this, we have a basket of options which are available to our employees. And like I said, we constantly keep talking to them, we constantly keep educating them throughout, through webinars and in-person sessions on, hey, how do you leverage all of these programs that are available to you within the organization, and then use it for your career progression.
I think of late, organizations have been investing in learning and development, but these days, because of the high competition, employee attrition, and all that, we have been more focusing on learning and development, right?
Yes.
Probably it has increased
Yeah,
of late.
absolutely. Yes.
And if you have to tell the top three tools that HR has to use, a HR individual has to use, what could they be?
Um, See, the first one I would say is analytics, right? It can, I mean, any organizations can use different, depending on what they are comfortable with. Like we use a lot of Power BI dashboards,
Mm-hmm.
and which help us to, the org transformation that I spoke about earlier. So
Mm.
to track those org transformation initiatives in the organization, these Power BI dashboards help us. So we have a series of metrics that we track, right? So I would say that is one. Second is, something that I have used a lot in my previous organizations is an early warning tracker.
Mm-hmm.
So again, attrition is a big concern for most organizations, right? And very often we don't realize that there are triggers. See, opportunities come all the time, right? Not everyone decides to take up the opportunity. So there's some trigger which happens, or some underlying reason because of which that situation gets created, which motivates the person to look out. And we've used this extensively. In fact, in my stint in Genpact is where we actually started using this,
Mm-hmm.
and I know many organizations use this. So this is again something which is gives you a lot of insights, but needs to be used with a lot of diligence, right? So that's the
Yeah.
second one that I would talk about. Third, I would talk about, same from a learning perspective. Actually, third, I would talk about it's not exactly a tool, but more in terms of a practice. Um, an exercise to identify high potential talent in the organization. So we use something called Nine Blocker. Again, different organizations have different tools that they use.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I have found very effective is
Mm-hmm.
not just the tool, but actually the conversation that goes along with it, right?
Okay.
Sitting down and talking about the talent that you have and
Mm-hmm.
creating plans for them. Unfortunately, most leaders get so caught up in their day-to-day, deliverables and the other priorities that they have, that we don't set aside time to do it. But that's extremely important, and that's where HR can play a very vital role in partnering with business to ensure such conversations happen.
Very nice, very
Mm.
nice. So, when you actually upskill, okay, learning is anyway there, but once the learning is done, and then you want to put them in that job,
Yeah,
which is like it could be skill rotation or job rotation.
yeah.
So, what kind of steps the organizations are actually taking these days?
See, one is of course on the job training,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you already have you've already put that person into that role, right? And then you are recommending to the person that, hey, these are all areas that you need to pick up, and then the person picks it up, and the person has an ample opportunity to practice, which I think is very important, because we've had situations where we've trained someone on something, on some particular technology or skill set, but they don't have an opportunity to use it. It's like that axe which you sharpen. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't use it, it's going to rust, beyond a
Correct.
point, right?
Yeah.
So it's really important that you have to be able to use that,
Right. That's
knowledge
why.
and skill
That's the
set.
reason I asked that question.
Yeah. So what we normally do is we usually align the trainings to the competencies required for that role.
Hmm.
So we have a competency framework, and through the competency framework, employees can assess themselves on the competencies that they have and competencies that they need to acquire. So this in turn, gives them an indication of what training programs will help them. So that is something that they can use for their current role. We also recommend to employees that if you're aspiring for growth, because we
Mm-hmm.
always say, right, when you are when you want to be promoted, you need to start thinking like the next level,
Next
right?
level.
You need to put
Correct.
on that hat already.
Yeah.
Mentally also, you need to start thinking like that, right? You need to start demonstrating that behavior. So that's where again upskilling is extremely important, because if you have looked at the competencies required for the next role and you know that there is a gap, then you clearly see that, hey, there is an opportunity to upskill and get prepared and start demonstrating that. So that's the best approach, I feel, Sri Lakshmi. Otherwise what happens is people learn, And if they don't use it, then it gets rusted, and that's it. Then beyond a point they will forget it.
Okay. Um, are you seeing any changes or any differences when it comes to gender based choices in terms of learning? More of women coming and learning these kind of skills and men coming and learning these kind of skills. Do you have any such variations, or people are coming to you, approaching you, and then talking about their career growth plans and all?
So, in terms of learning, I've not seen any differences as such, to be frank. But sometimes, and again, it's based on a study that I had done in one of my previous organizations. We were comparing promotion rates of men and women, and we saw that more percentage of men were getting promoted when compared to women. So, I was very curious because at that point, I had launched a women's forum in that organization, and I was doing a lot of, analysis around that, and I was curious to get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
So when we started digging deeper, we found that obviously people who are getting promoted are people who had a higher rating, a performance rating, and also who had demonstrated, credibility in difficult projects.
Okay.
So then we went deeper. I actually did a focus group with all the managers, to understand, okay, why is it that you are, giving higher ratings to the men? Or first of all, why is it that the men were getting picked for these projects? Because see, first of all, you have to get picked for the project, and then you have to demonstrate the competency in those,
Obviously, it's all.
difficult projects, right? So the answer was very interesting. They said that, see, Rekha, if it's a difficult project, sometimes you have to work on weekends. Sometimes you have to stretch, right? And because it's going through a transformation phase. And when we have asked women employees, some of them are not interested in that, right? Because they have their compulsions, and family, and they need to balance and all of that stuff. So then I said, okay, every time do you ask? They said, no, initially we asked, and then after that, nowadays we don't even
Based on assumption.
so two things here. One is, yes, they've had that experience with some of the women, okay, which is then, so I do make it a point, whenever I do sessions, I talk to women, about it, and I make them understand, right? Because sometimes the way we respond, the way we, do we raise our hand, do we put up our hand, do we ask for more? So,
Yeah.
I do make that point. Second is the unconscious bias which sets in based on the assumptions, right? So somewhere, there's this thought which sets in that, oh, okay, she has a family, she's got small children, so let me not bother to ask her. So unconsciously they
Oh.
are losing out on opportunities, right? Which in turn is impacting them. So you can see the cascading effect.
Yeah,
It impacts in
I
terms of
know.
rating, and then it impacts in terms of career
Promotions and all
promotions.
that.
Yeah, so it's changing, but I would strongly urge that, if you are a people manager, this is a question you should be asking yourself, when you look at your entire team, and are you giving opportunities equally to everyone, right? And give them, don't just assume, right?
Yeah.
Make it voluntary, let people put up, their hand, because in my experience, right, I have never seen any difference, at least, of all the men and women who worked for me, I have never seen any difference in terms of motivation level. So if I have had demotivated men, I've also had demotivated women, or motivated men, I have had motivated women also. So I
Yeah,
feel it's
I mean,
not
it's
correct to,
human.
yeah.
Actually, absolutely said. When the entire industry is buzzing about diversity and inclusion, and I think it has to be curated based on the employee. Probably men has their own challenges, and then women has their own challenges accordingly, probably. But the opportunities have to be disclosed to everybody, and then we need to motivate everyone. It depends on the individual how they take it up.
Exactly.
Correct.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is why, Sri Lakshmi, I strongly believe that when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and now it's actually DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. I think one of the most important trainings that needs to be done is unconscious bias. You know, hard unfortunately, at least I don't see many organizations giving importance to that. I'll give you an example. In my current organization, we did this beautiful intervention some time back. It was a virtual simulation training for the leadership team,
Mm.
where it was pretty interesting. So we had these, we were wearing all these the simulator goggles and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you are participating in a conversation, right?
Okay. Okay.
There's a meeting going on, and how different people are interacting with each other. So
Mm.
if it's a woman, how are they interacting? If it's a male, how are they interacting? If it's someone from LGBTQ plus, how are they interacting?
Interacting.
If it's an older person, younger person. So it was a very interesting, interplay, and how some people were being ignored,
Mm-hmm.
and some were giving more importance. So it was very, very interesting. It was
What kind of results did you find from them?
no, it was pretty, it was a transformational, intervention for people who went through it. They were like, I didn't even realize that, sometimes we don't tend to listen to certain people in
Mm.
the room.
Mm.
Or sometimes, we have quiet people, and we need to also draw them out. We need to, also ask, them to speak. Like, we do this values workshop at
Mm.
Real Page, right? We have 4 core values:
Mm.
character, excellence, teamwork, and ownership. And so we do a workshop with the employees because we want them to imbibe the meaning of the value and internalize it.
Mm.
In that, when we talk about character and teamwork, we actually tell them, say you're in a group discussion, and you have some of your team workers, they haven't spoken. What do you do? How do you handle it? Right? How do you make them feel belonged? Do you even try to understand why they aren't speaking? Right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, they may have some they may be feeling shy, they may be feeling reserved, or maybe someone's put them down, or maybe they feel that even if they speak, they won't be listened to. Right? So these are all so
Probably
important.
their the way they were brought up, entire
Exactly.
thing impacts their
Yes.
mental thought process. What is the environment that they have come from?
Correct.
And then
Correct.
maybe somebody might have already rejected them,
Yes.
not allowed them to talk. All these the things also impact in the corporate
No, you're
environment.
absolutely right. I'll give you yesterday's example. We had this session. So we've designed and curated this session called Conversi.
Mhm.
And because many people do struggle with English communication, right? But
Mhm.
I mean, whatever it is our business communication, it is our business language, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is that you may be technically very brilliant, but beyond a point, if you're not able to converse comfortably in English, it starts hampering your growth.
Yeah.
So we've designed this 3-month intervention to help such people. And I've done this in my previous organization also. So yesterday we actually had the graduation ceremony, and one of the employees, I actually had tears in my eyes. He was saying that, I come from a Telugu medium, and so I've never been comfortable in speaking in English. So even on calls, while everyone speaks, I'm always silent. But after this program, it has given me the confidence. I can, and this he was speaking, holding a mic in front of more than 40-50 people, right? He said, this is the first time I'm speaking in front of such a large crowd, and today I have the confidence to speak, right? So I think that's where organizations can play a very vital role in identifying such employees, giving them these opportunities, and curating programs which can help them. But yes, onus also comes from the employee. Now, the same program we actually offer to 100 people,
Okay.
right? But I was very clear right from day one that when you sign up to the program, you have to be 100% committed, and you can't miss even one single class,
Yeah.
for the next 3 months, right? There are people who dropped out,
Mm.
which is fine, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to prioritize your career growth
Yeah.
and the importance of such interventions.
Very, very nicely portrayed because we see a lot of real time scenarios like this. A lot of people come from their local medium
Correct.
language and then they really face difficulty in communicating. That's where they don't participate in meetings. They're always on mute mode in meetings, and then, but they're very good with technical
Yes.
knowledge and then they do that. Okay. Um, so, when we are talking about such things, we spoke about learning and development, inclusiveness, belonging, and all that. Based on all these things, employees, when they are working on their desk, they always have probably only two things in mind. One, how am I growing in the organization? What is my hike? Next, which is coming up.
Correct.
Okay. In the current market scenario, which is very volatile, you have the attrition rate has increased when you compare to last maybe a decade or a 5 years back, how the attrition was. Now the current, it's very different. So what are the strategies that you have from the HR desk to actually retain the best talent? Yeah.
See, first and foremost, Sri Lakshmi, compensation is one part. It is important. I don't deny it. In one of my previous organizations, I had designed this, beautiful framework. Okay. There is, I'm sure you're very familiar, right? There is something called cycle of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, cycle of life is nothing but you have different aspects of life, right? Where you spend time. And for example, you spend time with work, you spend time with family, then, hobbies, and then fitness. So, when you actually measure, most most of us, 90% of us would be spending most of our time with work
Yes.
and of course family. Okay, but then when you start looking at all the other dimensions, for example fitness, unfortunately, even today there are many people who don't do that. So this is a standard question I always
Yeah.
ask my employees. How many of you work out every day? You will
Uh-huh.
not believe how the responses are so less. So, anyway, how many of us spend time on spirituality? How many of us spend time on upskilling? How many of us spend time on meditation or learning new hobbies, right?
Mm.
All of that, if you see on that cycle, will be very less.
Yeah.
Same concept I apply to work.
Mm.
And I say that, okay, cycle of work or cycle of, company, whatever you can call it, right?
Mm.
Again, what are all the parameters there? Okay, it's compensation, it is your role, it's your empowerment, it is the amount of freedom that you have, it is the amount of opportunities to do new things and learn new things, it is the culture of the organization, it is the people centricity, it is the importance of the organization, the organization gives to well-being, and for a safe and conducive workplace, all of these, right? Again, when so I use that diagram or framework and I tell people that don't focus only on compensation, because
Mm.
what happens is if you focus only on compensation, say for example you leave the organization that you are in currently, oh wow, I got a 40% hike, and you don't look at all the other factors and you jump to the next organization until you get the first paycheck in the bank, you're happy. Once it comes in, it is maintenance. Okay, that is a
Okay.
default.
Yeah.
Okay, it no longer motivates you. Then the aspects that motivate you or keep you happy or fulfilled are all the other aspects. Now, if you have done a due diligence and you have actually identified that, hey, is this an organization where I will also get fulfillment on all the areas and you get the 40%, then that is fine. But many people don't do that.
Don't do that. They only focus on the monetary benefits that they
Exactly.
have.
Correct. Correct. So that's why I'm saying I'm not saying don't focus on the monetary, but what I'm saying is also give importance. So and my own organization, we have many people who have come back. We call them as U-turn employees, right?
Mm.
And we are happy to take them back because from an organization perspective, these are people who already know the organization, who understand the product, who understand the culture. Now, from an employee perspective, they want to come back because they appreciate the culture, right? So they might have left for a certain reason, but they miss the culture of the organization and they want to come back. So as HR, always our biggest priority is on culture, on the entire employee life cycle, and opportunities to grow people from within. Our tagline actually is look within before looking outside, because for us, default every single open position is first advertised internally.
Okay.
And our leadership team gives a lot of importance to first looking for internal talent.
Mm.
And then if there are niche skill sets we are not able to close internally, then only we go outside, right? So I think that's something that I know most organizations do. That's a very important thing. Culture, I have already spoken about. Three, when it comes to compensation, yes, we need to be competitive, right? So doing your annual benchmarking surveys, understanding how the market is moved, understanding how niche skills have moved, help using that information to ensure that you have the right salary ranges in place, which helps you to continue to be competitive, attract the right talent as well as retain your talent, is extremely important. But at the end of the day, also it goes back to how what's the financial status of the organization, what kind of budgets do they have for the merit increase. So all those also come into play. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
combination of factors that come into play. But from a HR point of view, yes, ensuring that these things are done, whatever I just spoke about, and ensuring that we have a very transparent and accurate mechanism to decide merit increases, which take into factor things like the performance of the individual, where that person is currently in terms of the salary range. All those factors have to be taken into account in a very systematic, data driven manner, and then doing the merit decisions. That's the best way to do it.
That's a very nice way to bring back the employees. You're giving them the second chance
Yes.
to come back, and then
Yeah.
uh, U-turn employees, right?
Yes.
As
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
we see few of the organizations hesitate to take back those employees because when they resign and leave, probably maybe employees might feel back and say that they want to go back to the organizations, but the organizations are resisting because they kind of try to retain, but they were not, and then this
I
thing.
think, yeah, I think it also goes back to, that's why they always say never burn your bridges,
Yeah.
right? And it's important that, and this is, my advice to any professional, right? Always leave the organization on the right note.
Mm.
Because whatever has happened, right? It's important that you don't burn the bridges. You never know when,
You
either you
want
may
to
come
work on
back,
that.
or you may end up working with any of those colleagues somewhere else, right? So you never
Correct.
know, right?
Correct.
So it's really important that you always have a good working relationship. I mean, you don't have to be friends, but have a good and respectful working relationship, because it's a small world.
And respectful departure.
Yes, exactly. Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
When we were talking about so many policies coming in and all that, in the current new age of work, lot of targets, we have to be competitive in the market, we need to do better products, develop better products, and then get more projects, meet the targets. All these things are there. So as the work is being getting cascaded down to the employee level, eventually the stress levels are also going. When it comes to the strategic level, probably the pay, the perks, or the kind of responsibility, everything is definitely there. But when it comes to the employee level, they will definitely consider the stress factor because of the overload of the work that they are thinking. I always had one thing in mind, that when you are actually choosing some career, you're not so dumb that you're getting into that role. You will anyway ensure that, okay, I'm going to work for so many hours. It's not like every role has its own challenges, like teaching has its own challenges, corporate has. So they know that there are challenges, they step in, but still they encounter that stress level. When, because recently also we have seen some cases like E&Y employee has committed suicide because of this stress and workload at office. That's what they have claimed for. And they were one of the employees, 40 plus years old employee at Bajaj Finance, saying that because of the targets that they have to meet, he has committed suicide. So we obviously previously things might have happened, but now they are coming into limelight now because of the media exposure and all that. What is your take on it when it comes to employee well-being, stress, and SHR? How do you manage it? What kind of solutions do you give?
Sure, absolutely, and very very important topic, Sri Lakshmi, and thanks for bringing this up. So, first of all, I think the role of organizations in employee well-being became very crucial during COVID. So pre-COVID, if you see, organizations might have some gyms or some gym, memberships, or some badminton tournament or a cricket tournament once a year, or those kind of things, right? During COVID, organizations played a very, very important role in terms of helping employees because the infrastructure just wasn't enough, right? So we couldn't really depend only on the hospitals or the government, right? So many organizations jumped in and they've done an incredible job in terms of supporting their employees during COVID. That's when also the entire stress management came into play because people were isolated and at home. We were dealing with a very, very ambiguous situation, something that we've never seen before in our entire lives, right? We never knew whether we would get out of it or not. Today, of course, it all seems like a big dream, right? Did it really happen? But when we were going through that, it was very, very stressful. And for people who went through COVID, people who lost a lot of their family members, they had absolutely zero support. I remember one of our employees who was stuck in one of the towns. He could not even cremate his parents, and we had to then help through one of our NGOs to provide him the necessary support to be able to do that, right? So there's a lot of stress that they went through, right? So I strongly believe that organizations need to play a much much more proactive role in employee well-being, right? And as HR leaders, it's part and parcel of our responsibility, and we owe it to our employees to create that kind of culture and keep that focus on. For example, in our organization, we have employee resource groups, right? We have different employee resource groups. We have an employee resource group for women. We have a pride employee resource group. We also have a be well employee resource group, which focuses on physical well-being, mental well-being, spiritual well-being, and most important, financial well-being. So
Okay.
we do all of these. Why financial well-being is important? Because we have a multi-generational workforce. So recently we've started hiring a lot of freshers from college, right? It's important that right from day one we educate them on financial prudence, things like investments, and those kind of things, right? So that's why we also focus on financial well-being. We also have an anonymous counseling service that's available globally to all our employees. It's completely anonymous. No one in the organization will even come to know if someone's reached out to them. And they offer services not just for someone who's say upset or something like that, even for situations where say someone's going through a breakup or someone's going through a divorce, right? These are all traumatic
Yeah, yeah,
situations, right?
correct.
Or someone's going through some financial difficulties. Even in such cases, anonymous counseling is available. So this is something right from day one. In every single forum we educate our employees and we tell them that hey, it's anonymous, please reach out. If we come to know through the HR business partners also, then in a very discreet manner we advise employees that please go for this. We also do a lot of awareness events, right? For example, I don't know, I was very very impressed when I saw Sudha Murthy's maiden speech in parliament.
I
If
know.
any of you haven't seen it, I would strongly recommend, because she speaks about the dangers of cervical cancer, which is one of the biggest killers for women, and many people don't even realize it. There's a certain age at which the vaccine needs to be given, how many doses of vaccine. Similarly, today with the latest news on Biden, prostate cancer has become, something which people are talking about and
Yeah.
concerned about. Heart attacks at a very young age,
Yeah, very young age. Yeah.
how do you do emergency CPR? So all these kind of things, right? Corporates can play a very, very important role because employees spend, at least 8 9 hours with us, right? And we should be leveraging this time. We have so many forums. I feel that as a HR leader, I'm in a very influential space. So any forum I'm interacting with employees, I always make it a point to talk about well-being and fitness and stress management. And we also talk to them about the many forums that we have. If they have any concerns or grievances, please don't keep it in your mind, come and talk to us. I think HR leaders play a very important role, and they should be, utilizing every single opportunity to build that strong climate. And it comes top down, like for example, our CEO, our leadership team, everyone emphasizes the importance of,
Mm.
well-being.
Okay, that you're talking about a larger organization
Hmm.
who has ample investment money to
Yeah,
spend on it. When it comes to a medium level
yeah,
organization or a startup organization, even at the startup level organization, the kind of funding that is there, which is less, but the kind of stress levels are more,
yeah,
because you need to meet the targets based on the
correct.
the resources available and all that. Now, for those kind of organizations, what kind of solutions can be given? Of course, we think about mental well-being of people, but how do you tackle that situation
Got it.
in such?
Absolutely. See, some of the examples that I gave are not necessarily need a funding, right? It's more the mindset. Now,
Mm.
if whoever it is heading the organization or the startup, first of all, they need to be convinced that this is important and this is a priority. Now, the minute you have that mindset, you will automatically be able to create solutions. And there are many cost effective solutions which are available in the market. Even if you have no money at all, just to bring in that openness and that transparency and that safe space, a psychologically safe space for your employees to be able to talk,
Mm.
say that, hey, you know what, I'm stressed, I can't do this, or I put up my hand, I need help.
Mm.
How often do people, you know people are so scared to even say, no, I can't do this,
Mm.
right? No, I need more help, or I need more time. So, even creating that kind of space and giving them that freedom to be able to say something like that, because otherwise, if they're constantly thinking, oh, if I say this, what will happen to my rating? What will happen to my, bonus? Or will I be, laid off, right? If they are only constantly thinking like that, then obviously it's building up stress.
Mm.
So I would still say that it is top down. The leaders have to be, first of all, convinced, and they need to create that kind of atmosphere where people are comfortable, people are happy. Happiness at work is a
Yeah,
very, very important thing. And again,
so true.
I it's great to hear so many people talking about it. And I think that's important, because if you don't have that joy and that passion, and that happiness in your work, and you're spending like 8 10 hours, 12 hours on that, then that itself is causing a lot of
Yes,
stress, right?
correct.
So I think these are very important. Yes, money for some of the initiatives, but even if not, there's a lot. I mean, you can just decide that, hey, we will do a standing meeting,
Mm-hmm.
or we will do a walking meeting, or let's have a healthy lunch together, or let's just get together and for 10 minutes let's just laugh, let's just crack jokes.
Yeah,
I mean, these don't cost money, right? All it
correct.
needs is the mindset.
Mindset. Absolutely, very well said. So, on the closing note, if you have to tell three important skills that a current HR person
Hmm.
should have, and three important skills that any employee should have,
Okay.
if you have to say. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, three important skills from a HR perspective.
Mm.
One is, very clearly business understanding,
Mm.
right? I say this again and again and again. There is absolutely no substitute to it. You have to understand the business, you have to understand business priorities, and only then you will be able to tailor the people intervention accordingly, right? Two is HR analytics. Very important. You have to be able to leverage data, and we sit on tons of people data. There are a lot of insights that we can get from that. So you have to be able to leverage, that the HR analytics and that HR data to be able to come up with the right insights and suggest and recommend the right actions to the organization. Third is, you can call it skill, you can call it whatever. I feel, that empathy is so important, right? Uh, you have to really enjoy what you're doing. You have to be able to always have that hat on, right? You have to be able to look at it from different angles, look at a situation from different angles, right? Because you need to look at it from an employee perspective, you need to look at it from a business perspective, from a leadership perspective. So you are that person in the room who is putting on that hat and asking all those questions, and with the right empathy, which I think is very important. Sometimes we tend to miss out on it. Sometimes we tend to be too rule driven or policy driven or cost driven, but HR needs to always have that empathetic hat on. So that's from HR perspective. Now employee perspective, one thing I always tell, in fact, yes, so whenever new employees join, I always make it a point, I personally handle the new hire orientation, because for me it's a great way to meet the new employees and to talk to them about the culture of the organization. So one thing I always tell them is be proactive, right? Like I always, I give this example, and I'll share this example here. We normally tell our managers that have a fortnightly check-in with your employees just to see how things are going, to give feedback and all. So I usually ask this question to the new hires. I say, okay, your manager's not scheduled it, what will you do? Okay, so sometimes some of them are blank and some of them are, we don't know what to do, or some of them will say, we'll come to HR. I'm like, no, you go and set it up. Whose career it is? It is your career. You need to be proactive. You should be able to, set it up and then, tell your manager, hey, I have done all of this. I want to do this. I have this idea, right? So proactiveness is very important to have a career plan for yourself. So that's another series, Sri Lakshmi, that we've started in our organization, because we really want to educate employees on building careers, within our organization, right? So again, if my favorite question, which I always ask employees, is how many of you have a career plan for yourself? Even if it is a 1 year career
One
plan,
year
right?
can,
It's okay,
yeah.
right? Do you have a plan? And have you written it down? So some of them say, no, I have a plan, but I've not written it down. See, writing is very powerful, right?
Very powerful.
Very powerful. And so we actually did a entire webinar completely on how to write a career plan, right? So that's the second thing I would tell. Please have a career plan for yourself and write it down, because careers are not a 100-meter dash, it's a marathon. You need to prepare for it, right? I've run a lot of marathons in my life, right? So that's why I'm speaking from experience. You can't just suddenly decide and run a marathon. You have to put in the
Yeah,
training.
if it's from the beginning.
Otherwise you will be injured and you will be left behind. Third is, we spoke a lot about it earlier, the importance of learning and sometimes unlearning, right?
Yeah, you need to
Especially,
unlearn.
yeah, especially for tenured employees, this is very important, because you've been doing something, and I see this many times, right? There's just so much of resistance to change, oh, but that's how it's always been. Okay, but things have changed,
Yeah,
right?
we
We
need
need
to
to
change.
change. We need to change along with the times. And you can't keep coding, but that's how we did it 2 years back. That's how we did last year. Fine. But
Things
today
are
the
not
need is
changing.
different
Yeah,
and you need to
that's so
be
true.
able to change, right?
Great.
So that is extremely important. So being able to, so proactive, having a career plan for yourself and being intentional about your career. And the third thing is,
Learning.
learning and maybe unlearning also.
Yes. Very well said. So nice to talk to you about all these things. Probably our audience will definitely get good information on it. Rekha, I would like to ask, what are the craziest initiatives that you've actually done in your entire tenure?
Okay, great question. See, as HR, sometimes, we really have some very crazy and wacky ideas,
Uh-huh.
but it's so important that you also get the right support. So, in my previous organization, our MD was extremely, extremely crazy and wacky himself.
Okay.
So we've done some really nice stuff. For example, we've done this. If you remember the One Day CM movie that had come, right?
Yes, okay,
So
okay.
like that, we did
Yeah.
One Day MD,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, it was fantastic. People were so excited, to go and sit in the MD's chair.
We'll implement that.
Then we also did self nomination for promotion. So
Oh,
that was like really, out of whack.
okay.
Because always traditionally it's your manager who nominates you, right?
Hmm.
We said no, we'll take away that, right? If you
Okay.
feel you've done fantastic and you feel you've done great,
Then everybody would
please.
feel right.
Correct, but then there's also there is a
Okay.
strong nomination. No, actually, interestingly, not everyone does that. It's a myth. You think that okay, if I open it up, everyone's going to no, they don't. Actually, they become more responsible.
Hmm.
Similarly, we did self nomination for reward
Okay.
recognition.
Okay.
Again, we said because people were complaining, oh, I did this, I did that, my manager's not nominated me. We said okay, fine, don't wait for your manager. You think you're deserving, you nominate yourself. But of course it goes through a review process.
Correct.
But at least you're taking away the power from the manager. You're putting the power in the hand of the employee.
Correct.
Similarly, we also did something called One Day in the Life of.
Oh.
So one day in the life of is, say for example, you're in a particular role, right? And you want to move into some other role, but you don't know how that is.
Ah.
So we had a mechanism where people could opt for it.
Okay.
And they could say, okay, I want to see what is one day in the life of HR, or what is one day in the life of finance. And then they
They
go and
should.
spend,
Yes,
one
they
entire day.
should.
Yeah. So then we did that. Then in my current organization, we did something called Grab a Mic. See,
Okay.
many people are scared of public speaking. In fact, it's supposed to be the number one fear
Yeah.
according to statistics, right? And we wanted to remove that fear. We wanted to normalize it. And grab a mic is literally that. You grab a mic and you speak.
Okay.
And so we have various contests which happen throughout, the month. And then, we have winners and we have a nice, ceremony and all of that stuff. So these are some, crazy things that we've done.
Very nice. So probably we'll try to inculcate something.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rika.
Thank you. I really, really enjoyed the conversation. I
Yeah,
didn't
me
really
too.
feel the time passing at all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for asking all the relevant questions.
Thank you, Rika.
Thank you.
Thank you.